2 of this CleanLink Operational Excellence series. This module is focused on labor strategies. I'm Jake Meister, Senior Associate Editor for the Cleaning Market of Trade Press Media Group. Before we get started with today's event, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping details. We do encourage audience questions throughout the webcast. So to submit those questions, please navigate to the Q&A Ask Questions module at the bottom of the screen and type in the questions at any time. If you would like a copy of today's presentation slides, they can be downloaded in the related content module. If you have not yet registered for part 3 of this series, which will occur on September 10, you can do so now as well by using the link in the related content module on your screen. To successfully earn the 0.1 CEU, you must watch 40 minutes or more of the webcast. You can download your certificate at the completion of the webcast in the Earn Certification module. Today's webcast will also be archived on cleanlink.com in about 24 hours. Today's webcast learning objectives, to go over those, we're going to identify and evaluate labor strategies to optimize your organization's performance. We'll analyze the impact of technology in training programs on workflow efficiency and develop actionable plans to reduce employee turnover and improve staff retention. Now let's learn about our presenter. Our presenter today is Stanley Quinton Hewlin, the president and CEO of Future Facility Technology, Inc. He's a member of the cleaning industry since 1975. He has over 4 decades of cleaning industry-related services, training, sales, marketing, and management experience. As president and CEO of Future Floor Technology, he has designed and implemented cleaning and maintenance programs for building service contractor companies such as American Building Maintenance, DuPont Flooring Systems, Millcare Carpet, as well as independent contractors. As a national and international consultant, he has conducted cleaning and hard floor maintenance seminars throughout the United States, as well as in the Netherlands, France, Belgium, Egypt, and Japan. Most recently, he has acted as a consultant for government bodies to evaluate and develop comprehensive cleaning programs, as well as work with the cleaning companies that service them. And with that, I'll turn things over to you, Stan.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Stan Hewlin, but you know that because you were just told that. And today I want to go over the labor strategies that are involved in the cleaning industry, including the tactics that improve productivity and reduce labor costs. The thing about our industry is that it's based on labor, and that labor is based on productivity. So the first thing I want to do is go over what we're going to cover here. I know we just had the learning objectives, but this is in line with how we're going to cover it. We're going to talk a little bit about productivity and labor costs. We're going to talk about optimizing the staff scheduling, which improves productivity. We're going to talk about leveraging technology that can streamline the cleaning program. Technology is becoming more and more available to us in this industry, and therefore we have to kind of highlight some of those things that might be helpful in your operation as well. Then we're going to get into talking about implementing comprehensive training programs that actually work, that the customer feels comfortable with. We talk about an effective management of the cleaning staffs. Yeah, you know, a lot of times we think of the cleaning company from the bottom up. We're going to start looking at it from the top down. And then at the very end, we're going to talk about refining the training programs for long-term success. Once you have a training system within your organization, then you need to understand how to make that a long-term success. So we're going to start by productivity and labor cost. And this entails how improving the efficiency can reduce the expense that you're paying out for labor costs. So the first thing we have to do is understand this dichotomy between the building service contractor and the property manager. The property manager or owner has a vested interest, and they want to protect the building investment, the money that they put in to paying the cleaning company to take care of it. They have control over the financial investment. They are the one that says, you're hired, you're fired. So they have control over that, which is kind of a controlling thing. We want to ensure that the value for the investment, the building program manager wants to make sure that they have value for the investment, and that often equates into the most volume of service for the least amount of money. So on the other side of the fence, you have the building service provider, who also is a protector of the building investment, only they are more involved in the protection of the building itself by cleaning it. A lot of people don't understand that cleaning is the first line of maintenance. So it's important that they protect that investment as well. They desire the responsibility of taking over that contract. And the reason that they want that is they want the revenue for investment. That's what all you guys are out there working for, is you need to get the return on your investment. They desire that the account be profitable investment. And I know none of you guys out there have ever had this problem, but there is a situation where oftentimes you are taking money out of your pocket to pay for a customer because it wasn't bid right, or there were things that weren't discussed, or there was volumes of stuff that was not mentioned in the walkthrough or whatever. The thing with the building service contractor is they want to do the least least volume of services for the most amount of money. So this is always a dichotomy, because it turns into a negotiation situation. And what we all need to remember, building service contractor and building manager, is that the objective of a cleaning program is to make a program that keeps in mind the safety and habitability of the building. The building is the primary recipient of what we do, and oftentimes that gets negated and people don't talk about the building. But it's really, what does this building need to be a safe and habitable environment? So when we go through that negotiation, we come out with the property owner or manager develops the scope of work, and in that scope of work, they talk about the services that are going to be required, and that usually is clean this area this many times a week. So the frequency and what they want done is all of that they're really concerned with. And then they manage the contract. The contract that you sign is what they manage. The building service contractor, you provide the scope of services that you're going to perform. You tell them that in order to reach this level of cleanliness that you have designated, we have to clean the building at so many frequencies. So they schedule all the services. After they tell you how they clean a building, they schedule the services, and at that point, they implement the cleaning program. So understanding labor is a key part of it, because oftentimes we think of labor as just being the guy on the right, the guy who's actually doing the work. The cleaning technician is what a lot of people say is labor. And that's because of if you look at the definition one is physical or mental effort, especially when hard or required toil or work. So the second definition is more accurate. The services performed by workers for wages. So the guy on the left, even though he may not be sweating while he's talking to the customer on the phone, is equally responsible and equally accountable for what goes on in that building. So I want everybody to understand that labor just isn't the cleaning technician. Labor might be the manager and the supervisor as well. So you have to understand that when we talk about labor costs, we are talking about all the labor costs, not just the physical labor costs. Although the physical labor costs have a higher magnitude of importance, than the manager who just, pretty much keeps in contact with the customer. They are both part of labor costs, and you can't forget that. Otherwise, if you think your supervisor or your manager works for free, you'll be reminded every time you sign that check. So then you bring into the picture, what about the building? Operational labor costs for the building. Well, the building gives us the information that we need to know to be able to provide the customer with a proposal to begin with. I'll go back to the last presentation I did. We talked about the 30,000 foot level, which was all about the building itself, how the building is conformed and how you can, reduce steps and make headway to increase productivity. In the estimated labor hours, we talk about the scope of services. What services needs to be done to fulfill the contractual obligation? The second part of that labor cost are, what are the provisions? What are the equipment, tools, and materials and chemicals that you need to get the job done? They need to be wrapped into that labor cost as well. And then finally, you have the actual wage rates, because not all employees work for the same wages. So that's kind of a flexible thing that needs to go into the equation as well. So when you get a building and you have the contract, you can easily, after you've done all of the proposal and you built in all of the costs and everything, you can come up with a price per square foot for that building simply by the square footage, by dividing the square footage of the building itself by the amount of time that it takes to clean that building. And that will give you a very, very high level of cost per square foot. It might end up at being, X amount of cents per dollar based on the productivity rates. So that's how we come to the macro productivity rate is by dividing the whole building by the time it takes to clean the building. That is the macro view. So what we're going to talk about today is the MIDI view. And one of the most important things that we need to talk about is how do we optimize the staff and scheduling to make it work for the building so that we can look at it at a medium level. How long does it take to do certain things? And this entails planning the work and working the plan. We've all heard that saying before, but if you don't plan it right, what's the chances of success of doing it right? So I put a lot of emphasis on optimizing this staff and scheduling by planning correctly. So it starts with the management. The management is, as I said earlier, management is not, sell the job and then hand it over to the technicians and they're good to go. The manager needs to contribute to the strategic planning of the job. How are we going to lay out this building? How are we going to meet the contractual price? Then he or she will delegate to the supervisors and lead men. And usually the management position goes directly to the supervisor provision. And one of the things that the manager really needs to know is effective communication. I can't stress how important being able to communicate from top to bottom and from customer to vendor is important. And then, manager's job is not managed to not manage. A management job is performance. It's based on what do you see going on in your company? How can you increase the performance of your staff, whether it be an administrative staff, an operational staff, sales and marketing staff? How do you manage the performance of those different divisions that all make it important for the building to operate? And the other thing that a manager is, if you have to have a positive work environment in our industry, and that starts from the top down. If you have a manager that can promote that positive work environment, then you're going to have a lot more success. at contributing to the productivity and reducing it a little bit. So when you look at the supervision level of management, you're looking at a little bit different. They're responsible. The supervision position is probably one of the most important positions in the cleaning industry, because even though the manager is responsible for the overall effect of the building, the supervisor is responsible for the overall success of the program. They implement, manage, and monitor the program, so they have a key role in keeping it done. They create the schedules that people go out and work on. They manage those workflows, which is, how do you clean the building? What's the most efficient and effective way to clean the building? They gauge the performance of the individual operational technicians. How are they doing? What could we do to improve their performance? How can we get them to be a little bit better and not hurt their feelings? Because I'm telling you, the labor that you have underneath you, you don't want it to go away. In the old days, and I'm the old guy, in the old days, it was, they used to call the janitorial environment a turnstile environment, because people just rotated in and rotated out. So the supervisor is also there for guidance and mentorship. When somebody's struggling, they can't seem to get it right, or they've got personal problems at home, and they've got to be aware of that their work is what pays them. So they do a big job in guidance and mentorship, and sometimes things that they don't even know about. And the other thing that they do more often than anything is training and assistance. Oftentimes, when somebody doesn't show up to work, who does their work for them? A lot of times it's the supervisor, because they just don't have anybody else to go do it. If you're a privately owned business, you may find yourself out in the sticks doing your own business because a janitor didn't show up or a cleaning technician didn't show up. The next thing we want to talk about is establishing the schedule. An established schedule increases productivity. If you don't have an established schedule, then you're shooting, you don't have a target to shoot at. You're just shooting that arrow straight up in the air. Good luck in getting out of the way. So it's important that the minute that you sign the contract, the first day that you start is the starting of your scheduling date, and all dates that come after that are based on that initial start date. That is probably the most critical date in your calendar, is when do you start it. And I kind of like to go through the different levels of cleaning. Initial cleaning is only going to be done on construction after the building's built, or after it's been remodeled or whatever. After you've had any kind of construction, it's a construction cleaning. Construction cleaning is usually built separately. It's not part of the contract. It's usually a one-time only. There are some companies out there that specialize in this. When you really start an account is during what we call the initial restorative. And that's when you get a newly acquired account, and you have to, you're not being hired because the previous company was doing a good job. You're being hired because there needs to be cleanup on aisle 3. And so that usually starts with initial restorative. And that's always with a newly acquired account. The main reason that you want to do that is the first impression long outlives the last result. So if you go into a new building and you do a really good job on it, they're going to remember that pop, and that's going to get you through a troubled time when it's not so clean, when you're missing people, or when things are going on. Then you have your daily routine, which is 1 to 7 days per week. It could be weekly. It could be every other week. It could be once a week. That's why it's called daily or routine work. It's something that you're going to do on a daily basis or every time that you're there. Then you get into periodic or interim work, which usually has to deal with spring cleaning or doing that high dusting for cleaning technicians. Usually it refers more to the specialty services like hard floor maintenance and carpet cleaning. And those services are going to traditionally be done more on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis or a triannual, which is 3 times a year, or semi-annual 2 times a year. And that usually, depending on the traffic in the building, should cover the periodic and interim work. And finally, you get to the restorative work, where you got to do that deep cleaning. It's just been a long time since you've cleaned the curtains, or you've done the Venetian blinds, or things like that. Strip and refinish floors, extraction of carpets. So that usually happens annually, biennially, or triennially. Biennially is every 2 years, and triennially is every 3 years. So it can go on. If you can get it up to every 5 years to do a restorative, good for you. And it can be done. So understanding the different time frames for cleaning a building, the cycle that you're going to clean through, can help you in increasing productivity, especially if you have them scheduled at times and dates. And what you don't want to do, especially in the periodic, is say, well, I don't have the people to do that this month. We'll push it till the next service. That can screw up the contract big time, because, tomorrow never comes. So that's the importance of establishing a schedule to begin with. And then there's the technician or the team productivity variables are, how does your team work in the field? And that's going to vary considerably based on, what the previous experience that individual or team has had. What is the prior training that team or technician has? What do they know about the cleaning skills? Are they properly trained in the cleaning skills? Are properly trained in the specialty skills? Window cleaning, floor maintenance, and carpet cleaning are things that we use, but we don't just always send out the cleaning technician to do that. Oftentimes they don't have the skill set to go that far. And then the biggest thing is, when you get to training, is industry certifications. I promote industry certifications extremely, because they're usually done by an association like ISSA, IICRC, APPA. Those certifications are valuable to the technician in their growth. So if you go down the list, you'll understand that if a person possesses all of these skill sets, then that's going to be a really good person or team to have representing you. The other thing that we do to increase productivity goes kind of back to the macro level and looking at, how do you improve productivity? Well, a lot of times that is contingent on the building you're cleaning. People and buildings are a symbiotic relationship. A building can't exist without a person building it, and people can't exist without a building to survive and to protect them from the environment. So as you know, people come in all shapes and sizes, and so do buildings. So when we're trying to set up our cleaning program, we want to take into consideration the different types of cleaning that we can do that can increase the productivity for that particular building. A lot of times you see that small building in the front, the first one on the upper left is a small building. Well, that would be more efficient to have one cleaning technician go in there and do everything in that area or zone that they're, in this particular case, the building. If you go to the second picture, that's kind of a mid-rise building. It's got about 6 floors in it. So that's going to take more than one cleaner to get that building clean. So then you could do it with zone cleaning area or zone cleaning, but it may not be as efficient or as effective as cleaning it with specialty team, which is specific tasks assigned to specialty people. And that could mean that, Jane is very good at dumping trash and replacing liners, and she can do that with the utmost speed. And so maybe she's the one that goes through the building and dumps all the trash and replaces all the liners, which gives, Bob a better shot at cleaning those restrooms, which he's really, really good at, but he hates dumping trash. He just doesn't do trash worth beads. And then you got the guys that do the floor care, and you got guys that may do different tasks that better. So if you use the specialty or team system, you're relying on the performance abilities of each side of that. When you get into skip cleaning, like the third picture there is a university campus, and in a university campus, you may be using team cleaning, but you may not need to clean each and every place that hasn't been used. You go into one building and maybe the classroom hasn't been done. Well, you can skip that classroom. Maybe it wasn't used that day. And by understanding skip cleaning, you can definitely increase your productivity by not going through and cleaning a clean space. Then you have the day porter, which is cleaning tasks that are required throughout the day. A lot of times in very busy applications, you might have to replace the toilet. You may have to, if you go to an airport, there's no time during the day that restroom is clean because it's so heavily used and you have to replace that stuff all the time. The third type of cleaning is gang cleaning, which is everything all at once. And you'll see I have a baseball stadium there. When you have events, these are very, very much important to events. You take in, 20 or 30 people and you go and you clean the whole thing in a very short period of time. If you happen to be involved in an arena of any size or coliseum or any place that they do music events or multiple events, then in between those events, you need to send somebody in there to get that cleaned as quickly as possible. And then finally, you have cooperative, which is usually you get the company that's occupying the space to take their own garbage to the recycling station or the trash station. So each of those different cleanings can give you proficiency depending on the area that you're in. Leveraging technology to streamline workflows. This gets into provisions and systems that increase productivity. We were talking about skill set in the first section. Now we're going to talk about technology. And when we talk about technology, and I kind of put, I love definitions because definitions mean what they say and say what they mean. In technology is a noun, the practical application of knowledge, especially in a particular area. And B, a certain capability given by a practical application of knowledge. So when we're talking about practical application of knowledge in a special area, it usually comes in the form of chemicals, equipment, tools, and materials. And there are new advances in those four arenas every single year that improve proficiency in working it. And then the second part is a capability given by the practical application. So when we're looking at a practical application, we're looking at managing and marketing, and you're going to have technology to access the building. Used to be everything was hard keys. Now it's digital and also biometric. And then monitoring usage. You used to have to count the bottles. Now there's means and methods of keeping track of that. Inspection applications. Those are very important. If you don't monitor and manage your inspections, and there are tools out there that help you with them to be able to do it on your phone, to be able to do it, off-site. You don't have to go home and, write it up. And then there's communication technology. I can't tell you how much the portable handheld device has encroached into our ability to monitor and manage a site that isn't where people are occupied. Then you get the specialized aspects of particular field of supervision. What do? There are people out there that do post-construction only, and they're very, very good at it. And if a person tries to go from just general cleaning of a building to post-construction cleaning, there's a learning curve that often takes and then there's high-rise structures and entertainment environments. All of those things are specialized services that require cleaning technology advancement stuff. So going through these quickly, we'll just kind of talk about them briefly. Readily available provisions increase productivity. Is your storage area, cleaning provision area, centrally located? Is it suitable size and access for what you need to clean that building? Does it have sufficient shelving and space to store your stuff in it? You can't plug your automatic scrubbing machine out in the hall and run the cord under the door. It's not a very good way to do it. And does it have electrical outlets inside the provision area? Because a lot of times you need to recharge stuff that we need, even more so today than it has been in the past. And it needs to be well stocked. You need to have all of your chemicals, equipment, tools, and materials within that you're going to use every day. You cannot run out of supplies. That causes a bottleneck in cleaning proficiency. Another thing that is remarkably important is dilution ratios and methods for diluting. It must meet the needs of the application. So concentration is ready to use chemistry. We all know that comes in spray bottles or whatever we happen to be using it for, and it can be adjustable in concentration. Proportioning systems have gotten us away from physical measuring, using measuring cups. People never used measuring cups anyway. They'd lose that measuring cup in the first 15 minutes of the job, and they'd use the glug theory after that. So there are two types of proportioning systems that we use consistently: the attachment to the hose, and then there's the physical wall mount. So we have to be sure that we understand that. Then we get into equipment technology that impacts productivity. Sure, you can do everything manual with physical application, or you can move up to cord electric, which has a power assist. You're using a cord electric machine. And then you could even go one step further in a writing machine, which might be more efficient in an airport, for instance. Writing vacuum cleaners are way more proficient than a 12-inch or a 14-inch cord electric vacuum. And then nowadays we're looking at robotics, and it's come a long way since they first came out. And every year when I look at robotics, they're just getting better and better. But before you go out and purchase an extremely expensive robotic machine, make sure that you get the usage that you need out of it. Then we get into the general tools and materials, and I don't need to tell you guys about this. This is everyday stuff. You've got to have your well-stacked provision cart. Dry particulate removal includes hard surface carpets and area rugs with vacuum cleaners and brooms and dust mops. And then mopping systems are replacing the bucket and mop type systems, which is a bucket and a press and a applicator system such as a mop. Now we're looking at microfiber systems that are much more effective, and I'm seeing more and more microfiber systems than the old buckets and mops, which could be good, but there's always use for that bucket and mop. Don't ever forget that just because technology is racing by you, that what you're using is still going to be usable. So remember that the materials need to properly support the tool that they're used on, and they can be one of two types. It can be disposable type materials or washable and reusable type materials. Now we get into implementing a comprehensive training program. How do you enhance efficiency while maintaining quality? It's really, that's kind of the big question. Is usually you find out that you go faster than you need to. I got to tell you that your labor, which is both management and blue collar and white collar workers, are your most valuable asset. So training programs are essential to keep them updated and current on what they're doing. So when we talk about training, we have to understand that we all start from the same place and we all want to end up at the same place. We start with unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know, and you're not going to know what it is till somebody teaches it to you, or you mistakenly make a mistake and you figure it out, which is not a good way to do it. It's called the school of hard knocks. And then you go from unconscious incompetence into conscious incompetence, which means you're aware of that skill that you're using, but you're not yet proficient at it. You know how it works, but you haven't figured out how to hold that mop right, or clean that desk right, or whatever. That's called conscious incompetence. Then you have conscious competence, which means that you understand that skill and you can do it, but it still takes a little bit of effort. You still, have to remember, maybe you're still working off of a checklist, but you know what you're doing and you're getting pretty proficient at it. You just getting proficient at it with using a bit more effort. And the final stage that we all want to get, no matter what it is you're doing, no matter what occupation it is unconscious competence, which means you're going to do that skill that you've been practicing without even thinking about it. The next thing you know, you're done with your task and you're moving on to the next building or the next place. So this hierarchy of competence is important for every endeavor that you do. So it's really important. So I just wanted to remind you the stages of learning that we go through. We get to the different positions that we deal with. So incremental training improves efficiency and effectiveness. Oftentimes we go to a training and it's the baby being fed with the fire hose. You get so much information, you can't possibly retain it all, but you have to take a test at the end of it. So I like to remind people that you have different trainings. In orientation training, you learn about the company hierarchy. You learn about roles and responsibilities. You talk about internal communication and external communication. You talk about the shifts and the hours. You talk about how you keep time and how you get paid. What is the payroll? So when you first go start a job, you're always going to start with the orientation training, which just gets you orientated to the company as opposed to the craft. Then you get into the apprentice skills, which is where you start looking at the basic skills that's applied to every job, things that depending on which cleaning method that you use will apply to it. So basic skills are applied to every job. Oftentimes we use that as when you understand through maybe a training class what the basic skills are, then you might lean into on-the-job training, which is where the new apprentice technician will shadow a journeyman technician and learn the skills, and that journeyman technician will help point out the anomalies in the cleaning. And you might have initial in-house training, which is applied to a specific building, a specific account, a specific set of buildings that you might be doing. And that might require actually being in that building to learn how to clean it because of whatever its specialty arrangement is. Certification training is where the journeyman technician comes in. Oftentimes, after you've gone through basic and advanced training, you want to hone that certification training. You want to have that certification. If you have certification training, that's training that you can carry with you from job to job. And it's usually applied by established associations like the ISSA, the IICRC, and the APPA. You have supervising training. Usually supervising training is in-house training passed on from one generation to the next generation. But there are building supervisor training classes out there that teach you how to be a supervisor, not how to get through the job and just watch the other trainers. So it's important to understand that they're even in the in-house training, you're showing those folks how to do the job at that particular place. There are things that you need to know as a supervisor. How do you talk to employees? How do you manage those employees? How do you make those employees successful? Or how do you take care of them when they do something wrong? And then you get into specialty skills, which may be established associations in that specialty skill. Maybe you send somebody to learn how to take care of stone floors specifically, or how to ultrasonically clean Venetian blinds. Specialty skills are very special, and they're hard to attain. And if you have somebody with a specialty skill, you certainly want to use them where their specialty is worth it. And then you have train the trainer. Oftentimes when you're in a larger organization, you have to have a supervisor become a trainer in the field. And there's one trainer that teaches the next trainer that teaches the next trainer, which makes it even better. Then you get into effective management of the cleaning staff. And that's where you get to the point where you have to reduce employee turnover. If you're paying to have somebody learn something, you don't want them to quit the job and just go use those skills that you just paid for, or that you just taught them, for the competition. So it's a delicate balance between effectiveness and efficiency. And I throw the definitions out there because I think that they tell you what you need to know. Effective is to produce the desired or intended result, or to work well and achieve a successful outcome. Efficiency is achieving that desired result with the least amount of wasted time, effort, or resources or energy. So if you understand that, we're all trying to move towards the efficiency, but first you have to be effective before you can be efficient. So it begins with the hiring process. You recruit the right talent. Do they have a good attitude? Are they right for the company? Do they have the ability to perform the job? You set clear expectations. You describe the job requirements. You describe the roles and responsibility of those around you. You depict the environment or the company culture. If you don't have a company culture, you need to develop one. And that company culture should not be one of negative. It should be one of positive. And you want to involve the employees. The employees are the guys that are out in the field. Those are the guys that understand what's going on, and therefore they understand the problems. As managers, sometimes we just look at things as costs and the productivity level. How do we increase the productivity level to meet the cost? Sometimes you might have to change the cost to meet the productivity. It's a two-edged sword, but we always look at it from one perspective. Then we get into recognize and reward the employees, understand the job satisfaction. The key point here is job satisfaction is what keeps people from moving away from you. Nobody leaves a job that they love. Nobody leaves a job that they're doing really well at. People will leave if they find a lot of negativity. So offer competitive compensation, of course, that goes without saying, but it has to be at or above the fair market value. Offer company benefits, and they are essential. People today have to rely on company benefits for health reasons and 401ks and that kind of thing. Provide performance feedback. Let them know where they stand. Improve them by keeping them, transparent about how they're performing. And then implement an employee recognition program. That's where you get them up in front of all of their peers and you say, this person did a good job because of. You want to promote people with positive reinforcement and not negativity. Make it a work and life balance. In today's environment, everything has to be balanced in life. Promoted balance, have flexible possibilities for your employees. Maybe they do remote work. They go to the job instead of going to the office. They have flexible hours. Sometimes that's helpful, if you've got children and that kind of thing. And maybe compressed work weeks. Maybe you go to a 4-day work week instead of a 5-day. Maybe that's more efficient for you. Foster that positive work culture environment. Offer supportive, inclusive, and positive work. Encourage open communication. Promote collaboration and teamwork. Those are all things that are going to develop into positive work cultures. And then manager-employee relationships. I cannot tell you how important it is for a manager to touch a technician from time to time. Well, not touch, but communicate with technicians from time to time and encourage that open communication. Then one of the best things you can do to focus on employee development is growth opportunity. If you have that growth opportunity through training programs, through mentorship, through opportunities to advance, they're going to look at that and say, gee, there's a reason to stick around here. And then there are other professional development things that you can do, like send them to workshops. You can take them to a local conference and get some education there. But the biggest thing that I say is this picture is the ISSA show. It's an annual event. If you send your technicians to an ISSA show, that's like sending them to Disneyland. Everything, every ride, everything is in that show. And it really just gives them the influence that they need that says, wow, this cleaning industry is not a dead-end street. It has value. And then continue to possibly pay for their education and training, reimbursement. If the employee pays for that, then the technician is oftentimes feels like he has to develop that for the company. If they pay for their own education and training, then they can leverage that education and training for somebody else to get a better job or a better position. So refine the training program for long-term success. And we're going to talk about quality assurance plus quality control equals quality improvement. If you have a good quality assurance program, which is everything that you put into place from purchasing equipment to training technicians, if you put that into place through a quality assurance program, which is kind of what we're talking about, then you're going to have a lot more success. Quality control is the inspection and the follow-up to make sure that what you're teaching through quality assurance is being delivered to the field. And that makes sure that the quality control is always there. Now, if you do both of those things, you can't help but improve the quality of your operation. So then you have to monitor the training programs. All training programs must have clearly defined learning objectives. They must be engaging in content. They must have great methods of measuring effectiveness and adjusting. And they must be purposeful within the organization. So there is no one training program that suits everything. That's feeding the baby with a fire hose. You want to feed the baby with an eyedropper. You want to always keep them hungry and wanting more. And that will produce a positive environment. Finally, conducting training needs assessment. Needs assessment is identify the skill gaps, define learning objectives, determine what is needed to improve them. How do you analyze staff performance? Establish where training can make a difference. There may be places where you need specialty training to figure that out. And then survey the employees and get their feedback on how good that training was and how it might have impacted them. If you do that, the benefits will be improved performance. You'll have employee satisfaction. You'll conserve resources. You'll improve work productivity. And you'll attain your business goals. So it's a win-win for both sides of the equation, for the operational technician and the managing technician. So it's important to understand that you need to do needs assessment for your company, and that if you do those needs assessment for your company, you will have good benefits. Program design, set realistic goals, create engaging and interacting content. I think I went over this. Match training to the individual needs, leverage technology, ensure that the content is relevant and practical to the person that you're training, and incorporate real-world examples. In this particular picture, showing a floor maintenance technician how to teach another floor maintenance technician to use a 175 RPM rotary floor machine. Then the delivery. How do you deliver that program? Choose the appropriate methods. A lot of times it used to be you had a chalkboard. Now we have all kinds of media to help us with it. Provide the clear instructions and guidance. Offer ongoing support for that training that you're doing. People should be able to call you and ask you a question if they want. And then you do the evaluation improvement. Measure the training's effectiveness, gather the feedback, refine the program, and then start the cycle again. Begin tracking the progress. If you do that over and over again, you will fine-tune your training objectives to exactly what you need for your company. To keep people around, to keep them outside of that turnstile is to cultivate the benefits of continuous learning. You want to encourage the employees to pursue ongoing learning opportunities. You want to provide the resources and support for those opportunities. Because if you do that, you will have the mutual benefits of aligning with the business objectives. You'll be able to have confidential employee engagement. You'll get a return on your investment. You'll stop reaching into your pocket to pay the customer for cleaning their building. You'll have, and if you have regular review and updates, again, it's a constant thing. It's not a one and done only. And finally, to summarize what we've went over, we've talked about to get the maximum productivity, it takes all the players to do that. You have to have management involved, supervisors involved, technician operations involved, and even administrative support. Even if those folks are just billing and getting the mail or whatever your admin does, they are just as valuable as the people in the field. You want to minimize your labor costs by optimizing the schedule, streamlining the workflows, and having a great quality assurance and control package. And then you want to continue with comprehensive training. Remember, employees are the most valuable asset that you have. You have to continually try to apply employee retention, refining the program, and continual improvement. So that's my presentation. I'm going to turn it back over to Jake, and hopefully we got this done in time.
Yeah, the timing's absolutely perfect, Stan. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for that great presentation today. This is the time in our meeting here that we're going to ask for Q&A questions. So if you all have any questions for Stan, please plug those in, and then I can read those off to him. We actually already had two in there, Stan. One was, how do I know what to start looking for new tools to be more efficient, or when to start looking for new tools to become efficient?
For what to become efficient?
How do I know when to start looking for new tools to be more efficient?
The minute you outgrow the old tools. If your pants don't fit no more, you need to get a new pair of pants. And usually that's because we expand our horizons, and we need to get that. It's no different in work. You may start off with a tool kit that's very manual. And as you grow into your business, and I'll give you a good example, you can scrub a floor with a brush. You could do the whole floor. We'll use a restroom floor. You could do a whole restroom floor with a handheld device, but it's going to take you a long time, and it may not get as clean as you like it. So at that point, you graduate to a 175 RPM rotary floor machine, and maybe a Strata-Grit brush on it to clean that, and that's going to improve your productivity. If it happens to be out in an area that's wide open, like a cafeteria or something, you may want to go from that. Yeah, you can clean that with a 175 RPM rotary floor machine, but it may be more effective to go to an automatic scrubbing machine, which really streamlines your workflow. And then maybe from there, if you're doing box stores and everything else, you might go to propane equipment because you don't have the outlets to plug into. So the minute you grow out of something is the next time that you need to grow into something, because you need to have something to replace that something. And that is applicable to chemistry, equipment, tools, and materials. It's applicable to how we monitor and manage. Maybe I'll use another example. If you're doing inspections and you're doing it on a hard copy, maybe you go to, there's several inspection platforms out there that you could incorporate that are much more efficient. You can do them on your phone. You don't have to take that paper copy and then go copy it into an Excel spreadsheet. It may be able to transfer that stuff automatically. So again, it's when you grow out of those pants, it's probably time to be looking for a new pair of pants.
Fair enough. Yeah, no need to go buy a belt. What's the best way to structure and pay supervisors is what an individual had asked. Should we have, for instance, one full-time supervisor or several part-time supervisors overseeing multiple accounts, pay per account, or hourly? How do we keep, and then also how do we keep them engaged and show the value of their role, even if pay is limited right now?
That is a great question. Supervision is one of the key positions that really impacts your business. And I usually, most supervisors will supervise 6 to 8 technicians, and they may be in different locations, or 6 to 8 buildings, because they have to travel, and you have to look at their when you're dealing with route work, which sometimes if you're a small to medium sized company, you may be doing a lot of route work, and the supervisor has to do route work as well. So they may have to travel to several buildings. If you're in one building, one supervisor can manage up to 6 to 8 people, because you got to remember that part of the supervisor role is to mentor and also to assist. So they might be doing some training out there and mentoring, and that takes time. So it's just not like all that a supervisor does is inspect the building and turn in the paperwork. So how many supervisors do you need? That's going to be contingent on the number of buildings or the amount of work that you have to get done. What you don't want to do, part-time supervisors, probably not a really good thing, because they're only part-time engaged. There are working supervisors that will have a small route within a building, like half a shift route, and then half of that shift is on supervision. But once you put somebody in a supervisory role, they fit that role, and it's very difficult to move them backwards. It's more important to move them forward. So the last part of that question is, if you can have them do a split shift of operations technician and supervisor, that's a good way to transition a supervisor into a supervisor role. You're not a real supervisor till you're a certified supervisor. So supervisors should go outside of the company to get supervisor training through one of the associations.
Okay, and we had one more that can you recommend what to look for in an inventory and inspection technology platform for maybe a medium-sized operation?
There's a number of them out there, and although I can't drop names, that would be unprofessional of me.
Yes.
There are a number of them out there. I can think of 4 of them right off the top of my head. So if you Google cleaning and inspection platforms, or just cleaning inspections, you'll probably get them all. Okay. So just do a little Google search, and I would tell you some, but I can't do that. Just can't.
No, I appreciate that. I get, Stan, is there anything else? We're perfect on time. We're right at the top of the hour now. So is there anything else, any final thoughts you would like to share with the viewers?
Yeah, since I've got, let's see, about 60 seconds. This whole program was about increasing productivity and proficiency. It's hard to get one other than the other. You have to understand that effectiveness and efficiency is a delicate balance, and sometimes you have to sacrifice uh, efficiency or speed in getting the job done for effectiveness in getting it done correctly. A friend of mine, a guy named Mark Warner, he says that his daughter can clean her room, but it takes her all day to do it. So she does it really good, but it takes a lot of time to get it done. So that balance between efficiency and effectiveness is something that you've got to monitor and manage. And it's really, sometimes it can be hard because we always think of things in well, if I do it faster, I'll make more money. Well, it's, you may make more money, but you might lose the account. So everything that I've talked about in this presentation is actually important in running a successful business.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Stan, for that great presentation and that response there. And thank you, everyone, for attending the event today. Our final reminder, this event was recorded and will be archived on cleanlink.com. Also, if you're not currently registered for part 3 of this series, you can find that registration link in the related content module as well. Once again, we appreciate everyone being here. We hope to see you again on September 10 for part 3 of this series, where we will focus on productivity. Again, thank you, everyone. And this concludes today's event.